Hello and welcome to Smart Coach. Today in the class of Ancient Indian History, we are going to study about Vardhan dynasty. So let me write here Vardhan dynasty. This dynasty became famous for the visit of Huinsang. The Buddhist monk who is also known as the king of or prince of pilgrimage, because he had travelled throughout the length of breadth of India. Not only India, he also visited various other countries collecting information about Buddhist monasteries, and in his book he writes about all these nations, their social culture, social and cultural scenario, their economic condition, and what was the condition, especially political condition of these nations. So Huinsang was a very important traveller who came during Vardhan dynasty, and he travelled in the northeastern part of India as well. It was because of Huinsang that we have historical account of northeastern India, especially in Assam or Pragjotishpur as it was known, and about the the dynasty which was ruling in Pragjotishpur. Now let's come back to Vardhan dynasty. Who were Vardhans? So after the decline of Guptas, their vessels, many vassal state had declared independence. So which were these vassal state? We have Vardhans who were based at Thaneshwar. So let me just underline the name of Vardhans. Then we had Chandras who were ruling in Bengal and Gauda. Okay, Banga and Gauda. Chandras were ruling there. Then we had Mokharis who were ruling in Kannauj. Let me underline Mokharis. So like this, there were many vassal states who had declared their independence. Now as I told you, Vardhans were ruling from Thaneshwar. This Thaneshwar is located in modern day Ambala. This dynasty is also known as Pushyabhuti dynasty because Pushyabhuti was the founder of this dynasty. After him, many other rulers ruled under this dynasty, but the famous ruler who became independent was Prabhakar Vardhan. He was the first king who took the title of Maharaja Dhiraj. And he ruled from 550 AD to 605 AD. So he was the first independent ruler of Vardhan dynasty. After that, we read about Rajyavardhan, who ascended the throne in 605 AD or CE. You can mention that. So these are the two important kings we read about. Okay. After Rajyavardhan, it was Harshavardhan who ascended the throne. Rajyavardhan was elder brother of Harshavardhan. Who ascended the throne in 606 AD and continued to rule till 647 AD. Circa or AD. Okay. So this is the list of important king. After Harshavardhan, we do not have mention of any great ruler who ruled the dynasty. In fact, we can say that Vardhan dynasty actually collapsed after Harshavardhan. He was the last great ruler to rule before the tripartite struggle. In my other classes, I will talk about the tripartite struggle. So, what do we know about Harshavardhan and what are the literary sources associated with Vardhan dynasty? First let's look into that. The first literary source that we study is obviously Huinsang's travelogue, which he left and where he has talked about, he has given in-depth detail of Harshavardhan being the king of Magadha, about his army, about his devotion and religious life. So, Huinsang has offered us a travelogue which we study. So, first literary sources is obviously Huinsang's travelogue. Then, the next important literary source that we study is obviously associated with Harshavardhan himself. Harshavardhan was a prolific, writer, and this is not something very new. If you see, even Samudragupta of Gupta era was known as, Kaviraj. He was a great writer, and this trend of having, king who would write continued. Even in Satavahana dynasty, we had Hala, who was also known as Chintamani, and he had written Gatha Chintamani and Gatha Saptasati and many other important books. So, kings were into literary activity, and in future you will see that Rashtrakuta ruler Amogavarsha will also write important book, and it will continue even in medieval age. Even in Vijayanagar Empire, you will see rulers writing important literary work or creating important literary work. So, Harshavardhan was also associated with important literary work. What were the books that he wrote? Let me just write. Harsha wrote Nagananda, Ratnavali and Priyadarshika. Now, along with this book, his court poet Bana Bhatta, who was also his friend, has also written important book. So, let me write the name of Bana Bhatta. Bana Bhatta wrote Kadambari. Bana Bhatta wrote Kadambari. Other than that, the tradition of writing Prashastis continued during Harsha's time as well, and we see that inscriptions were attributed to Harsha where his activities were eulogized. In our next section, we will study about the the history of Harshavardhan, what were his achievement, and before that we will talk about a very interesting story associated with Harsha, which made him a king who gave respect not only to Buddhism but also to Hinduism. His era became an era of stability, peace and religious tolerance. So, there is an interesting story associated with it, which I will be talking in my next section. So, in this section we are going to talk about the the story associated with Harshavardhan, and it has become a legend actually. So, there are many characters. Before I lose you, I will write the name of all these characters. So, I have already told you Rajyavardhan was actually elder brother of Harshavardhan. So, the first character is Rajyavardhan. Now, he had a sister. Obviously, the sister was sister of Harshavardhan also. So, Harshavardhan and Rajyavardhan, both of them had a sister called Rajshri. Rajshri was married to the king, Mokhari king Grahavarman. So, let us add it like this, Grahavarman, who was the king of Kannauj. So, Rashri and Grahavarman were living happily at Kannauj. Let us take this story like this. Now, what happened? In every happy story, we have a villain. And who is the villain here? The villain is Devgupta of Malwa. So, now the villain is Devgupta of Malwa. He is the ruler of Malwa. So, I am writing his name in red so that you understand he is a villain. And along with them, there is a bigger villain who is seen as Shashanka. Now, Shashanka was a very, powerful ruler. He ruled in Gauda. Where is this Gauda? This is in West Bengal. Okay. So, Bengal, the whole Bengal was divided into Vanga and Gauda, and Shashanka was the ruler of Gauda, and we can also relate from some historical text that Shashanka was actually an emperor, because under him he had many vassal state, and most probably Pragjyotishpur or Kamrupa was also a vassal state of Shashanka. Now, this Devgupta and Shashanka, they attacked Kannauj and Grahavarman was defeated, and along with that Shashanka abducted Rajshri and took her to Gauda. Now, when Rajyavardhan came to know about this, he went to fight a battle with Devgupta, but Rajyavardhan was defeated and killed. So, obviously, when the elder brother was killed, Harshavardhan immediately became the emperor of Vardhan dynasty, but he was only 16-year old. Now, at this point, he had lot of things to look into. First of all, he had to get Rajshri free from Shashanka, and he had to know where Rajshri was located. In this search, it is said that Harsha was helped by a Buddhist monk called Devakar Mitra. Devakar Mitra. He was a Buddhist monk who helped Harshavardhan. Okay, Buddhist monk who helped Harshavardhan to actually locate Rajshri, and it is said that Harsha also collected a huge army, and with the help of vassal king, he went and fought with Shashanka as well. But it is not clear whether he killed Shashanka or not, but after this war, we definitely know that Rajshri was free. He brought Rajshri back into Thaneshwar, and in this story, there is a story that Rajshri, after death of her husband, she wanted to commit sati, but it was Harshavardhan, a 16-year-old boy, who stopped Rajshri, and that was the time when he decided that in his empire he would not allow a system like sati to flourish, or he will not allow any widow to commit sati in his empire. So, it is a very it's a very poignant story which shows that how his attitude towards religion was molded. At the time when Hinduism was again getting redefined, at a time when Hinduism was reviving itself and it was getting into it was becoming a more orthodox Hinduism. It was Harshavardhan who again gave patronage to Buddhism and allowed it to survive. Otherwise, Buddhism would have completely lost, and maybe because of Devakar Mitra, the kind of help he got from the Buddhist monk, he had this in mind that he will obviously allow religious tolerance in his society. So, this is a very important story associated with him, but this is the religious background, how he became a tolerant king towards all the religion. But politically, if you see, after defeating Shashanka, after defeating Devgupta also, and after becoming the protector of Rajshri, actually Harshavardhan became the lord of not only Vardhan dynasty, but he also became the lord of Vanga, of Malwa, of Kannauj, and along with that his empire expanded. We also come to know from many historical accounts, especially the historical account of Huinsang, Harshavardhan had a large army which had 1 lakh soldiers and 60,000 elephants. So, it was one of the largest army of that time. So, what do we know about his military expansion? Huinsang says that Harshavardhan was the king of Magadha. So, obviously, Magadha had come under his domain, and after defeating Shashanka, Devgupta, Harsha must have controlled Malwa, that is central India. He must have controlled Rajasthan. He must have controlled Bihar and Bengal. So, all this made him Emperor of North India. And at the same time, the vessels who were under Shashanka and Devgupta and Mokharis must have become the vessels of Harshavardhan. How do we know that? Because in later life he will organize two important assemblies, and these assemblies will be seen as precursor of Kumbh Mela that is celebrated in it, which is one of the largest conglomeration of people of one religion coming together. And in these assemblies he had invited many rulers from across India, and they came and they obliged. And in one of the assembly he even mentioned, because Huinsang was present, that he will not allow anybody to speak against Huinsang, and if that is done he will definitely punish that person in a very rigorous manner. So when such a declaration is made, and knowing that India was turning into a Hindu a society in where many rulers supported Hinduism, in such a society, holding such an assembly where people were asked to come and participate must have been possible if Harsha ruled over a mighty empire and had many vassal state to support him. So these are very important aspect of Harsha's dynasty. Another question that comes is whether Harsha became a Buddhist, whether he converted himself into Buddhism or he remained Hindu. So many literature says or gives him the name of Shiladitya. So we have literature which calls Harsha Shiladitya. Shiladitya means the worshipper of Lord Shiva. As such, it is not sure that he had converted into Buddhism, but of course he must have given equal respect to all the religions. So let me write it here, worshipper of Shiva. So these are certain important aspects associated with Harsha's administration. Along with that, he also constructed stupa, he gave patronage to all the religion, and he also encouraged welfare activity. He constructed roads, he constructed rest houses, he planted trees, he dug well. All these welfare activities which Ashoka had taken after conversion into Buddhism, we see same welfare activities were taken up by Harsha as well. That is the reason why we suggest that Harsha's dynasty or Harsha's reign was one of the reign of stability, of progress and of tolerance, religious tolerance. Now in next section we will talk about two important assemblies which were conducted by Harshavardhan. In this section we are going to talk about two important assemblies which were organized by Harshavardhan. These were two religious assemblies, and many historians believe that it was the beginning of Kumbh Mela that is celebrated in India every year. So first assembly was organized at Kannauj. And these assemblies were organized in 643 AD or CE as it is written these days. So in Kannauj this assembly continued for 23 days. And Huinsang in his book Suyuki, this book is written by Huinsang. He speaks about these assemblies. So we come to know that in this assembly, Huinsang was given the title of Moksha Deva. Who was given this title? Huinsang. By whom? Harshavardhan. Okay. And for 23 days, Mahayana Buddhism was discussed. Mahayana Buddhism was discussed. We also come to know that in this assembly, 1,000 scholars, 20 king, 3,000 Buddhist monks, 3,000 Nirgranthas, and 3,000 Brahmins had participated. Now, maybe this is the reason why Harsha, even ordered that nothing should be uttered against Huensang. Otherwise, severe punishment will be given to these people. Whoever will utter anything, untasteful against Buddhism. So, what do we understand that though Mahayana Buddhism was discussed, but he also asked the Brahmins to be part of it. So, he was trying to build a society where Buddhism will also be respected and there will be tolerance for all the religion. Then giving the title of Moksha Deva means a god who can give you salvation, suggests high esteem he had for Buddhism. But at the same time, because of the content related to this assembly, many believe that Harsha may have converted himself into Buddhist. Then this belief is again contradicted in the second assembly, which was organized in the same year. The second assembly was organized, let me write it here, at Prayag, which is in Allahabad, and in the same year 643 AD or CE as it is written these days. So, this assembly was organized for 75 days, and in this assembly Harsha worshipped Sun, Shiva and Buddha in the same platform. Sun, Shiva and Buddha were worshipped in the same platform. So, what does it mean? It means that his actions brought a synthesis of Hinduism and Buddhism, where Shiva and Buddha both are seen as God, and it is also a synthesis of Mahayana Buddhism with Hinduism. From now on, Buddha will be seen as incarnation of Vishnu himself. So, this is what we see, and had Harsha converted himself into Buddhist, he would not have worshipped Shiva, or maybe even if he converted himself into Buddhism, he continued with his personal religion, which was Hinduism. So, from here on, it will be a phase of religious amalgamation that you will see, and in the tripartite struggle, like Palas and Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas, who will come later, even during that time, you will not see any empire or dynasty giving patronage to just one single religion. They will be giving patronage to all the religion. Now, another important information related to this assembly is that this assembly was called Mahamoksha Parishad. By Huensang. Why it was called Mahamoksha Parishad? Because Huensang says that Harsha donated everything he had to the poor and to the beggar, so much so that at the end he had to lend clothes from his mother. He donated all the attire of his body as well. However, after this assembly, Harsha didn't rule for long. In 647 AD, Harsha's empire collapsed, and then it didn't had any successful ruler. Many people believe that Harsha had only one daughter, and because of that, the rule did not pass to his son, and Vardhan dynasty collapsed. Whatever be the reason, after the collapse of Vardhan dynasty, which had filled the vacuum in the absence of Guptas in the post Gupta's period, now with the collapse of Vardhan dynasty, we see fragmentation of the whole Indian states. We will not see any centralized administration as such. We will see the coming of three important dynasties in the eastern, western and southern part of India, namely Pala, Rashtrakutas and Pratiharas, and from 8th century, in fact from 8th century you will see the coming of Arab invaders in the Sindh province of India. So this is all about Vardhan dynasty. We will meet you in another section, maybe in the classes of medieval India. From here on we will start the class of medieval India. So I will see you in the medieval Indian classes. Bye till then.